ADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is NewsLink. Here are the top stories. UK's Defence Minister collaborates with military chiefs in Nigeria to strengthen bilateral cooperation as they address Niger's situation. A consortium of civil society organizations in Mali calls for agreement between Bamako and the ex-rebels. Over 40,000 agro-processing companies in West Africa receive support to enhance products.
Companies are working together, they are partnering with technical institutions, with universities, and they develop products, they become more competitive.
And Ghana's government approves a creation of neutral company for nationwide 4G and 5G coverage to reach 80% of the population.
Existing network operators can utilize this network to extend their services. New operators can also utilize this network to deliver their services in country. And we're hoping that by that we speed up the adoption of high-speed broadband internet services across the country.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NewsLink.
Thank you for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Liberia and in Ghana. Let's begin the bulletin in Nigeria as the United Kingdom's Minister of State for the Armed Forces, James Heapy, meets with top defense leaders and military chiefs in Nigeria to deepen defense cooperation between both countries and discuss the situation in Niger. During his visit, Heapy met top brass on Wednesday within the Nigerian Ministry of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taurid Lagbaja. Abdullahi Hassan has more details.
The UK's defense chief engaged in meetings with several Nigerian officials, including the newly appointed Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru, and Minister of State for Defense, Bello Mutawalle. Furthermore, discussions were held with Dr. Aliyu Omar Toure, President of the ECOWAS Commission. During these interactions, the UK reaffirmed its support for ECOWAS' ongoing diplomatic initiatives aimed at ensuring a peaceful return to democracy in Niger Republic. Marking his third visit to Nigeria within 3 years, Heapy expressed his satisfaction at being back in the country while acknowledging Nigeria's diplomatic mediation efforts through the regional bloc to peacefully reinstate democracy in Niamey. The UK said it strongly condemned the ongoing coup against Niger's elected leadership. The ECOWAS Special Envoy, for his part, asserted that diplomatic endeavors will persist to restore the democratically elected government of the deposed president. In contrast, coup leader General Abdurrahman Chani announced intentions to transition back to civilian rule within 3 years, a proposal rejected by ECOWAS. Meanwhile, the African Union AU suspended Niger Republic in response to the ongoing situation. Notably, the overthrow of President Bazoum by army officers on July 26 prompted the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to issue a threat to use force to reinstate him.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there. In Mali, a consortium of civil society group is advocating for an inter-Malian agreement between Bamako and ex-rebels. Their goal is to engage Malian authorities and traditional leaders to facilitate renewed negotiations among signatory parties aiming for enduring peace. The consortium emphasizes the need for transitional authorities to establish trust with the signing factions to receive the process. The civil society organizations are rallying to revitalize the stalled Algiers Peace Accord, remaining it at the Inter-Malian Agreement. Siriman Sako, Secretary General of the National Council of Civil Society, stresses the importance of re-evaluating the agreement and expediting disarmament, demobilization and reintegration efforts. He also advocates for the involvement of traditional leaders in realizing the peace agreement. while key figures, including members of the National Transitional Council, convened on August 20 to reinitiate dialogue between the government and former rebels. The spokesperson for the Permanent Strategic Framework, contacted by WADR, refuted claims of advocating for an inter-Malian agreement. Let's turn our attention to Chad, where those opposed to the planned constitutional referendum on December 17, 2023, are actively working to obstruct its occurrence. Max Kemokoye, the leader of the Union of Democrats and Development Progress, along with his associate, have criticized the process, labeling it as both unlawful and lacking transparency. The forthcoming elections, intended to conclude the transitional period following President Idris Déby's passing in April 2021, are set for December 17. Sankule Janko has more.
Leading the consultation group of political figures, which encompasses multiple parties, Max Kemkoy, president of the Union of Democrats for Development and Progress, UDP, critiques the constitutional referendum for lacking inclusivity. He asserts that the project is being carried out in secrecy, with only the ruling power and its allies participating. This exclusionary approach leads him to believe that participation is not feasible. Consequently, the group has chosen to exert substantial efforts to prevent the referendum from taking place by December. Kemkoy emphasizes that simply voting against the referendum would not suffice. He argues that even if they mobilize people to oppose or boycott it, the outcome would remain unchanged. This pattern, he asserts, has persisted for the past 3 decades. As a result, he contends that participating in the election holds no significance. Instead, the goal is to prevent its occurrence. In response to concerns about the potential undemocratic nature of blocking the referendum, Kemkoy maintains that it is not anti-democratic. He views it as a legitimate choice and right exercised by a population when fundamental public freedoms and policies are suppressed. In such a scenario, he argues that referring to the event as a referendum election is inappropriate. Scheduled for December 17th, if approved, the new constitution will maintain the existing unity.
Sankule Janko, Fact Report.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
Now, Russia's head of Wadr, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was on board a plane that crashed on Wednesday evening north of Moscow on Wednesday evening. The Russian authorities confirmed that there were no survivors. This incident occurred exactly 2 months after Prigozhin led an unsuccessful mutiny against the top leadership of the army. The crash involved a private jet identified as an Embraer Legacy 600. The aircraft was en route from Moscow to St. Petersburg when the accident happened around 17 o'clock GMT. As a result of the crash, 8 bodies have been found at the crash site. Responding to the situation, Russia's Federal Agency for Air Transport has launched an investigative commission to thoroughly examine the circumstances surrounding the incident. We will bring you more on this report in the second half of the bulletin. Now, over 40,000 entities and individuals in agro-processing and cosmetic industries have benefited from the Africa Competitiveness Program by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. The West Africa Competitiveness Program was initiated to scale up agro-processing firms to enhance the quality of their product as well as the international market. Speaking to journalists at the second Ghana International Cluster Conference, which forms part of the initiative to showcase innovation in the cosmetic, fruits and cassava value chain, project manager Eben Mushale hinted that the majority of the support has gone into quality standards for products that are manufactured from these beneficiaries.
Companies are working together, they are partnering with technical institutions, with universities, and they develop products, they become more competitive. A big chunk of the work has gone into standards and enhancing quality and making the SMEs compliant to what the market is requiring. So thanks to this, now the companies, we have assisted more than 43,000 companies throughout the country, and thanks to this now they can have products that are conform to the market, to what the market requires, and they are now selling in some countries in Africa, in East Africa, in South Africa, but some of them are also accessing the European Union market, which is a top-end market, especially for cosmetics.
Eben Mushale is the project manager of the West African Competitiveness Program. Meanwhile, the Ghanaian government has approved the establishment of a neutral shared infrastructure company to deliver nationwide 4G and 5G services to about 80% of the Ghanaian population. Currently, only 50% of internet users in Ghana have access to a 4G network. As of January 2023, there were 23.05 million internet users in Ghana, when internet penetration stood at 62.2%. From Accra, WADR's Atiwin Mbilalosin has the story.
Addressing the 12th iteration of the African Peering and Interconnection Forum hosted by Main 1, Ursula Owusu-Ekufo, the Minister of Communication, emphasized the government's commitment to assisting service providers in extending their offering to rural areas. This effort aims to broaden the reach of network connectivity, a pivotal element in realizing the government's digitalization agenda.
Existing network operators can utilize this network to extend their services. New operators can also utilize this network to deliver their services in country. And we're hoping that by that, we speed up the adoption of high-speed broadband internet services across the country.
Emmanuel Kwarting, representing Main 1, the private entity collaborating with the government, highlighted their shared vision during the event. He underscored that the forum's primary objective revolves around leveraging the internet's capabilities to foster innovation, ultimately driving positive economic transformations for numerous individuals.
We cannot overemphasize the critical role that peering plays in enhancing the reach, reliability, and efficiency of this digital lifestyle. As we come together from various parts of the world for this peering forum, we are united with a common purpose to harnessing the power of the internet and content to drive innovation, empower communities, and economic development.
Organized by the African Peering and Interconnection Forum, this event carries a central mission of promoting digital inclusivity by facilitating the localization of Africa's internet traffic. The forum enhances the speed of accessing online content while simultaneously reducing internet expenses and network delays. Reporting for NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
You're listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. UK's Defence Minister collaborates with Nigerian military chiefs to strengthen bilateral cooperation as they address Niger situation. A consortium of civil society organizations in Mali calls for agreement between Bamako and the ex-rebels. Over 40,000 agro-processing companies in West Africa receive support to enhance products, and Ghana's government approves creation of neutral company for nationwide 4G and 5G coverage to reach 80% of the population. Still ahead is the press review, the guest interview, and sports update. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
The West African Examination Council WAEC office in Liberia has unveiled the results of this year's West African Senior School Certificate Examination WAXI, showing a commendable level of achievement. Out of the 49,383 students who participated in the 2023 WASI exam, an impressive 1,448 students attained a successful passing rate, constituting 94.06% of the total. Notably, the top positions were secured by 2 female students. For more on this development, here is WADR's Darlington Popa.
According to Dieboto, the head of WAEC Liberia, this marks the first instance of a significant number of Liberian students achieving a successful pass in the regional exams. Boto specifically recognized Bernie Johnson from the St. Christopher Catholic School in Kakata, Magibi County as the top performing student outside the Mosorado County.
The overall performance of the candidates at the passing rate of at least a subject on a examination is encouraging as compared to their counterparts who sat the exam in 2022. 9 subjects were offered on the examination, with the arts candidates sitting for 7 of the 9 subjects, while the science candidates sat a minimum of 8 of the 9 subjects. The results for some candidates in some instances have been withheld pending following investigation and determination by the appropriate committee of council. 1,799 candidates' results have been withheld for their involvement in 4 types of examination malpractice.
In response, Education Minister Ansu Soni acknowledged that the result released by WAEC reflects substantial ongoing reforms within Liberia's education sector.
It is a privilege to know that improvement is on course. There is still much to be done to ensure that the quality of our performances are brought to par with candidates across the region. I have every reason to believe that we are on course. I want to take this time to thank the president of this country for taking the place of the parents and the students who are self-supporting, to grant them the opportunity to go freely to sit these exams as they should.
Authorities attribute this achievement to the government's intervention, which involved the covering awards fee for all students across the nation. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Achiwin and Billa Lawson in Accra joins us now with the major headlines from the Ghanaian dailies.
Welcome to the newspaper review for today. Let's start the headlines by looking at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. We have a screaming headline here that says 66 die, 24 injured in fire outbreaks in Accra. Then we have another major headline, 2 Nigerians busted for allegedly trafficking 11 victims into Ghana. That's on page 3, and it would be an interesting story to look at. Then we have another banner headline, refrain from illegalities, Deputy Minister cautions immigration staff. And so those are the headlines in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. From the Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's go to the Daily Graphic newspaper. And this is all about the Super Delegates Conference for the governing New Patriotic Party taking place over the weekend. The screaming headline says, NPP aspirants justify inclusion on Saturday. And then some banner headlines. WASI written papers begin with oral English, exam for Ghana only. And then European Union injects 120 million euros into West African exports. And the final banner headline, 2023 Ghana Teacher Prize launched. So those are the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's look at the headlines in the Daily Guide newspaper. Screaming headline here, I don't fear prison, according to James Jache-Kwesen. He is a member of parliament whose parliamentary seat has been essentially in limbo because of a dual nationality suit. There was recently a by-election for which he won, but the matter is still in court. Then we have a number of banner headlines. NDC MPs, police agree on Bank of Ghana protest. The protest is supposed to happen early in September. And then 7 fight for 2 slots in Super Delegates Confab. Another headline regarding the Delegates Conference. This is supposed to essentially cut down the number of aspirants who are contesting to be the presidential candidate for the governing New Patriotic Party. And then they'll have another Congress to seal the deal and to select one person in a few months. But for this weekend, is to slash the number to 5. So those are the headlines in the Daily Guide newspaper. From the Daily Guide newspaper, let's do some business stories. The Business Finder newspaper, the screaming headline, FDIs must be mutually beneficial. GIPC boss tells captains of industry. So those are the headlines in the Business Finder newspaper. Let's go to the Business Analyst newspaper. The screaming headline, the Ghana Revenue Authority rakes in 414 million Ghana cedis from e-commerce in 6 months. Then Ghana records increase in electricity access. 2022 Ghana Sustainable Development Goal report revealed. And we'll end our newspaper review with the headlines in the Daily Dispatch newspaper. The screaming headline, Energy Minister hints of possibility of a 20% gold reward for gold smuggling whistleblowers. Those are the headlines in the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Wrapping up our newspaper review for today. From Accra, Ghana, I am Atia Winimbila Lawson. Back to you in the studio.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest interview focus this afternoon is on the Russian authorities' confirmation that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, was among the casualties of a plane crash near Moscow. The crash, which claimed the lives of all 10 individuals aboard, was disclosed by Russia's Emergency Situations Ministry. Reports indicate that a private jet identified as an Embraer Legacy 600 crashed north of Moscow during its journey from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Now, how does the death of the Wagner chief affect West and Central Africa, which by extension many people say is a tool of Kremlin's influence on the continent, particularly West Africa? And many have also argued if this event would demoralize Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger's efforts to not only fight insurgency but build stronger ties with Kremlin through its paramilitary group Wagner. Joining us now is Morgan Asoba, a regional security expert.
When you look at it from the individual angle, it's just a human being that is probably relevant as one of the key actors of Russia in terms of security and defense interests within not just the war that is being waged on Ukraine, but also the interests in Africa, as you've mentioned, Central Africa, West Africa. So it is an individual, and when it comes to people that are capable of leading the Russian project, I believe Russia has quite a number of these people. So with Mr. Prigozhin going down, it is a sad news for the team, but Russia will definitely find out somebody that will be able to pick up the leadership of Russian interest.
But then now, with that notwithstanding, looking at the submission that you have already given right now, so would these factors, would it demoralize Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger's effort to not only fight insurgency, but build stronger ties with Kremlin through its paramilitary group, Wagner?
I think there is less room for that kind of situation to prevail because, as I was mentioning, here we do have a more, let's say, tendency to focus on the institutional, let's say, the individual aspect of the situation. Prigozhin being dead today, it doesn't mean that Wagner as an institution is going down with Prigozhin. I want to believe that the system will prevail the individual that has just been declared dead. So if it happens that we are not dealing with such a mature system, then the leaders of West Africa definitely have to worry about the quality or the effectiveness of their relationship with Russia through the paramilitary group that is being considered or called as as Wagner.
Right. So finally, before I let go of you, looking at the role he played in a mutiny that failed in the country, already some fingers are pointing somewhere right now. What do you think? Do you think there is a foul play coming from Russia?
It is very difficult to say to say exactly what is happening, even in terms of why do we have this crash or how is it going to be without precaution. But it is clear that all the ideas will come out. It is only the various investigation that will first clarify the situation related to the crash, and for the rest, as far as making Wagner Group functional and efficient, it is clear that Kremlin will find its way.
Morgan Asogba is a regional security expert. Sankule Janko is here with Sports Update.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ivorian club Atletico de Abidjan kicked off their CAF Women's Champions League WAFA Zone B qualifiers with a 2-0 victory against Togo's Amis Domond. The Ivorian side dominated proceedings in the Group B encounter with the Togolese side in Benin City in Nigeria. Sandrine Namian was the hero of the night after scoring a brace to give a perfect start to their qualification campaign. Namian confidently converted a penalty 4 minutes before the first half and adding her tally just 12 minutes after the break to seal the victory. Meanwhile, in the early match of the day, Burkina Faso side, USFA were held to a goalless draw by Sam Nelly of Benin, according to CAF official website. In the transfer news, Super Falcons centre-back Osinachi Ohale has joined Mexican club Pachuca from Spanish side Alvarez. The experienced centre-back found herself a new club after an impressive performance for Nigeria in the just concluded FIFA Women's World Cup. Ohale will join the top Mexican side for an undisclosed fee, and the duration of the contract is also not revealed. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and Numi FM 94.0 Banjul, in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County. We also thank our listeners in Ghana on Radio Pod 95.1 Savannah region and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek for the live stream. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music. Get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio. 94.9 FM Dakar.